I never thought my life would take such a tragic turn on an ordinary Monday morning, but here we are. It all started when I woke up late and realized I had exactly 6 minutes to get to school. Now, most people would just accept their fate and walk in late like a normal human being, but not me. I decided to take a shortcut through old Mrs. Jenkins' backyard. Now, Mrs. Jenkins is at least 103 years old, or so I believe, but she has the reflexes of a ninja and the heart of a war general. The last time I stepped foot on her lawn, she nearly took me out with a broomstick from 10 feet away. But desperate times called for desperate measures. I tiptoed through her yard like a professional spy, Mission Impossible music playing in my head. Just when I thought I was safe, my own shoelaces betrayed me. One wrong step, and I tripped straight into her prize-winning rose bushes. That's when I heard it. Who dares disturb my plants? I barely had time to turn before something came flying at me, her slipper, traveling at Mach speed. I ducked just in time, but the woman had already started winding up for round two. I did the only logical thing. I ran. I sprinted through the neighborhood, jumping over fences like an action hero. I made it to school just as the bell rang, feeling victorious. But when I reached into my backpack, I realized something horrifying. I forgot my homework. Mrs. Jenkins' slipper had knocked it out of my bag.
That's how I punish him for disturbing my precious flowers, heh?
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how I got a 0 in math. Almost got assassinated by an elderly woman. I should have known my life was about to take another tragic turn when the doorbell rang. Nothing good ever comes from unexpected visitors, especially when your greatest enemy lives just a few houses away. Mom opened the door, and that's when I saw her. She wasn't just some random girl. She was Mrs. Jenkins's granddaughter. I felt my heart stop, then restart, then stop again. She was beautiful. Too beautiful. Kind of beautiful that made you question reality. Kind that made you forget how to breathe. Kind that made you think, oh no, I'm doomed. Her long, dark hair, her piercing eyes, the way she tilted her head like she was analyzing my weaknesses, it was love at first sight. But wait, Mrs. Jenkins was her grandmother. This was a disaster. If I ever tried to talk to her, Mrs. Jenkins would personally throw me into another dimension. Worse, what if she was just as terrifying as her grandma? She said, holding out a plate.
Hello, Mrs. Clyde's mom. My grandma wants you to have this.
My eyes darted to the plate. Oh no, not the cookies. I had tasted Mrs. Jenkins' cookies before. Once. Just once. It was enough to haunt me forever. They tasted like burnt rubber mixed with expired sadness. Oh, how sweet. Thank you, dear. Mom took the plate, completely unaware that she was holding a biohazard. And then she looked at me.
Are you okay? Want to say something?
She said, I could have said anything. I could have been smooth. I could have made a joke. I could have breathed. But no, my brain short-circuited. My vocal cords betrayed me. I just stood there like a malfunctioning robot, blinking rapidly like a fish out of water. She left a moment later and my soul slowly returned to my body.
Mom, what was her name?
Why do you want to know, huh? Got a little crush on her, maybe?
No, Mom. Just asking for security purposes, that's all.
Mom just laughed and patted my head like I was a little kid. Sure, Clyde, sure, I groaned, staring at the plate of cursed cookies. No way. I couldn't fall for Mrs. Jenkins' granddaughter. But as I stood there, still thinking about the way she smiled, my heart whispered a different story. Mom didn't let me live it down. After I asked about her, she teased me nonstop. Every meal, every conversation, Nanaco's name kept coming up. Oh, Clyde, do you want extra sugar in your tea? Maybe Nanaco likes sweet boys.
Clyde, do you need some sugar? Nanaco loves sweet boys, you know.
Clyde, you're staring into space again. Thinking about Nanaco? Even when I sneezed, Mom was like, oh no, are you lovesick? Should I call Nanaco?
I guess you caught lovesick. I should call Nanaco. Huh?
I couldn't escape. I couldn't think about anything else. And then, one day, fate decided to mess with me again. I was walking home, wearing my earbuds, minding my own business, when I saw something that made my blood boil. A group of guys surrounding Nanaco. They were teasing her, laughing, saying things I couldn't hear, but I didn't need to tell from her crossed arms and the sharp glare in her eyes that she wasn't enjoying the attention. And as a man, no, as a decent human being, I couldn't let this slide. Now, was I strong? No. Did I have the muscles of a Greek god? Also no. If anything, I was the guy who dodged fights, not started them. But I had one thing those guys didn't, a little bit of cleverness. I didn't charge in like some action hero. No, I did what any smart guy would do. I called my friends. 5 minutes later, my boys showed up. They weren't bodybuilders, but they were enough. More than enough. And let's just say, those guys regretted their life choices real quick. When the dust settled, the group of jerks had disappeared, and Nanaco was standing in front of me. She looked at me for a second, then smiled.
Thanks, Clyde. I really appreciate what you did for me.
She said. And then she held out her hand. For the first time in my life, I was talking to a girl. For the first time in my life, I shook a girl's hand, and all I could think was, Clyde, you absolute legend.